So you want to know how to start a career in advertising. If you're trying to get your foot in the door but don't know how or where to begin, this video is a great place to start. Because today I'm sharing my 9 steps on how to get started in advertising, and towards the end I'm sharing 3 things of what not to do in interviews based on real stories that I have seen happen from the employer side of the table. So stay tuned. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Brandy with Life Marketing, the digital marketing agency with a mission to help small businesses grow. Today's video is going to be a little bit different than what we normally put out. This video is specifically for those who want to start a career in advertising. So before we get into my 9 steps on how to do that, please go ahead and like this video for me, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of the digital marketing videos we put out every single week. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in with step number 1, analyze where you're at. Are you in college trying to plan out your first career move? Or are you someone who has worked in a totally different industry for some years and you've just decided you're ready to make the transition into advertising? The next steps you take will slightly depend on where you're currently at in your career now. So for this step, take a moment to study where you're at and the experience you've gathered and whatever you've accomplished so far, and jot down a list of things that you could bring to the table in general. All right, so then step number 2 is determining where you want to go. In general, what would be your preferred outcome? If you're in college, this might look like getting an advertising internship. If you're already in the workforce, this might look like freelance work, or transferring to an in-house marketing team for a client, or working at a digital marketing agency like Life Marketing. For this step, you just want to solidify your goal and start defining your ideal workplace. So then from there, step number 3 is to get more specific on where you want to go. Start collecting a list of workplaces, actual names of companies that you want to apply for, and research them. If you're in college, there are often college career boards where you can find different advertising agencies hiring. And depending on your school or the career app that they have, sometimes you can use them a couple years after you've graduated as an alum. That's actually how I found out about Life Marketing and applied a little over 5 years ago now. Otherwise, there are always the more commonly known job finding apps you hear about, like Indeed, for example. But another option I'd recommend is to research the companies first. Find an ideal place that you'd want to work at based on what you can find out about them from Google and LinkedIn and whatnot, and then see if they have a place to apply directly on their website, kind of like what we have on our website. And don't feel like you have to limit yourself to companies in your area. One study found that 47% of the companies interviewed said that they would like to hire a remote marketing candidate. And that study was conducted in 2019. So imagine how that sentiment has only increased since 2020. Many businesses have incentive to hire remote candidates too, because A, that's less monthly rent that they have to pay in office real estate, and B, it opens up their hiring pool. They're not limited to the talent that just lives within 1 hour of the office. If the perfect candidate lives a few states over, that's still okay. So it's a win-win scenario for both you and the employer. But alright, so once you've got a list of some of the companies you would like to work for jotted down, you can move on to step number 4, which is to get any advertising experience you can. Before applying to these places, it couldn't hurt to get any advertising experience you can under your belt. Even if it's just the free Google training courses, you can then add Google Certified to your resume. Another option is you could offer some work for free to friends or family that have a business that they need to market, just for the sake of getting a little portfolio of your work together. And if you need a learning source to help get educated and up to date with today's advertising practices, our social media advertising training course is a great place to start. So I'll leave a link for that in the description.
Hey, we just helped a small business make over $1.5 million in revenue through Facebook advertising. And guess what? After managing millions of dollars in ad spend for thousands of different small businesses, I have decided to host a free training session to show you how to do this stuff yourself. So what do you have to lose? Go ahead and click the link below to get started.
Overall, you just want to find ways to add advertising related items to your resume, be it through completed courses or experience. All right, moving on to step number 5, dust off your resume. Depending on where you're at in your career, it may have been a while since you've updated it, or you may be creating it for the first time. Either way, you'll want to ensure it's as up to date as possible and is prepped specifically for the places you intend to apply to. So you'll want to make a really strong basic version of your resume and then slightly tweak things to make multiple versions of it that are attuned to the needs of each place you're applying for. And one piece of advice I can offer when you're doing this is that you're sort of marketing yourself, right? So it can help to think of your resume in the same light that we talk about advertisements on this channel. Let me explain what I mean. In several videos, I have talked about the importance of addressing a customer by their needs. If a business is running an ad, we talk all the time about using the ad to tackle the customer's goals or pain points instead of talking about how many awards the company has won or how great their company is. In the same way, you want to use your resume to talk about what problems you can solve or goals you can achieve for their company. In my experience, companies care more about how your skills can help them than how many years you spent in college. In fact, 64% of hiring companies have listed problem solving as the top soft skill they search for when recruiting digital marketing candidates. So while yes, you should have your credentials somewhere on your resume, I would spend more time figuring out how you can make yourself look valuable to the employer based on how you can help them achieve their company goals. All right, moving on to step number 6, start applying and follow up. Once you've got your resume ready to go, start applying to all of the places you researched on your list in step 3. You will get some no's and you may also never hear back from certain companies, and that's okay. It's not the end of the world. Just keep going through your list and applying, and don't be afraid to follow up with companies that you haven't heard back from yet. I know some companies specify not to follow up in their application process, but otherwise I would advise that you do. And when you follow up, I would do a little digging either on LinkedIn or on the company's website to try and find the proper person to follow up with. If you exhaust your list and still aren't hearing back, you may need to go back to step 3 and expand on your list a little bit and continue this cycle until you start securing some interviews. Which brings me to step number 7. Prepare for interviews. There are so many resources out there on how to prepare for interviews, how to dress, what kind of questions to ask and answers to prepare, etc. And a lot of that applies here too. The same general practices we always hear on how to prepare for an interview can be used here. But so instead of regurgitating generic tips on how to prepare for interviews, I'm going to give you 3 things of what not to do in interviews based on real stories that I have seen people do in interviews from the employer side of the table. Number 1, don't be too cocky or too relaxed. You want to find a balance. I've seen people come in trying to overcompensate for not having much experience with a cocky attitude. And I've also seen people come in who did have a ton of experience, and that's probably why they had a cocky attitude. But in both cases, they probably thought it came across as confidence, but in reality, some of the things that they said and the way they said them made it seem like they were not going to be a great team player or work well with having a manager in general. And on the opposite side of the spectrum, I've seen people who come in so nervous that they try to relieve the general tension that comes with the nature of it being an interview by making jokes or trying to be overly casual, which can come across as unqualified or not ready for a professional job. So you just need to find the balance, because I'm not saying to be unconfident, and I'm not saying to never share a joke in an interview, but the focus should be on your excitement around the position and the possibility of working for the company because of what you think you can bring to their table. Number 2, don't overshare personal details and life stories. I've seen so many interviews go south because the applicant is a talker that spends most of the interview trying to be friends with you rather than focusing on the job and their possibility of working with you. Now, I don't want to suck all the personality out of your interview because you don't want to be a bland, forgettable applicant either that gives cookie cutter answers. Again, it's all about balance. But for example, I have left interviews before feeling more like a therapist instead of a marketing manager because the applicant unloaded all of this unnecessary personal information on me that didn't have anything to do with working for us. In an interview, this is your time to show what makes you an asset to our company. Don't waste it talking about things that aren't going to be valuable to the employer. There will be plenty of time to become great working colleagues and build rapport after you get the job. All right, and number 3, don't under-prepare. You want to over-prepare for hard questions. It's better to be over-prepared than under, right? Same sentiment of prepare for the worst and hope for the best. You can do any number of Google searches to garner a list of the most commonly asked interview questions, the hardest interview questions and how to answer them, etc. Practice them at home where you're not under any pressure and can give a thoughtful, real answer. And then try to remember that for the interview when nerves may be a little high, because I know and have seen firsthand how people can blank on answers when they're nervous. I've seen some unfortunate answers come out of nervous applicants that I'm sure could have given a better answer if they had just prepared ahead of time. Usually, for most applicants, the nervousness comes from the fear of not knowing the answer to something or being stumped in the interview. So take as much time as you need to prepare for the interview beforehand to help eliminate the source of that fear. As an employer, all of these things can be red flags to us because your interview is supposed to portray the best version of yourself. And if you can't carry yourself in a professional manner, or stay on topic within the interview for 30 minutes, or answer basic questions thoughtfully, it isn't a good look as to how you would then perform as an employee. All right, so those were my 3 transparent tips into what not to do at interviews. Now let's move on to step number 8, network. If you got the interview, but you didn't get the job, the best way to look at it is that you have now met someone face to face who works in the industry. So even if they don't have an opening for you right now, it's a great idea to add them on LinkedIn to keep in touch with them. Also, upon hearing that you did not receive the job, you can email them back, thank them for their time, and ask what you could have done better or differently, or what they loved about the candidate that they did decide to go with. This helps give you better insight into what employers are looking for, as well as opens the line of communication between you and that employer post-interview. This will make it easier to keep in touch down the road to see if they have future openings after you've bettered XYZ about your skill set. Or you could even go on to ask them if they know of anybody else in the industry who would be interested in having an interview with you. Just don't let an unsuccessful interview set you back. Utilize it to learn and keep going. All right, so moving on to step number 9, never stop learning. This applies to both scenarios, whether you didn't or did get the job. This is how you get a job and keep it. Digital advertising never stays the same. Even in my 5.5 years, so much has changed from when I first started. You have to keep up with updates and market changes if you're going to be successful and remain successful. Going back to the interview process, you being super up to date on current advertising news and tools may be something that sets you apart from other applicants. So don't get complacent and continue investing in your education within digital marketing. All right, so those were my 9 steps on how to start a career in advertising. But is there anything that surprised you or stood out to you? If so, let me know in the comments. Or if you have any general questions, drop them there and I will be happy to answer them. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell, and I will see you in the next episode.